Hi, and welcome back to my channel, Learning Biology with Dr. Vanessa. In this video, we are going to be covering the cardiovascular system, the heart. Specifically, we are going to be looking at the anatomy of the heart, characteristics of cardiac muscle, the conduction system, electrocardiograms, heart sounds, and chemical regulation of the heart. I will not be discussing how blood flows through the heart, as that is discussed entirely in its own video. I will put the link for that video in the description box below. The heart is located in your chest, protected by your rib cage, and situated between your two lungs. This area is referred to as the mediastinum. The apex, tip of the left ventricle, rests on the diaphragm, which is an important muscle used in breathing. The size of your heart is roughly the size of your fist. Males' hearts are slightly larger than females'. And on average, your heart beats about 100,000 times a day, which is approximately 2.5 billion beats in a lifetime. Surrounding and protecting the heart is a membrane called the pericardium. This membrane is made up of two parts, the fibrous and the serous. The fibrous layer is made up of dense, irregular connective tissue. It prevents overstretching of the heart and provides protection and anchors the heart in the mediastinum. The serous layer is a double layer that surrounds the heart. The visceral portion of the serous layer is synonymous with the epicardium. That means it touches the heart directly and is actually part of the outermost layer of the heart. And the parietal layer is further away from the heart. Between these two layers is fluid to help prevent friction. Now that we've talked about where the heart is and what surrounds the heart, let's talk about the layers of the actual heart wall. The outermost layer, which I just mentioned before, is synonymous with the visceral pericardium and is called the epicardium. You will see that portion right here. Going inward, the middle layer is referred to as the myocardium. You will notice that this layer is very thick. This layer makes up 95% of the heart, and it is composed of cardiac muscle. So it is the thickest layer. The innermost layer is a very thin layer. It is called the endocardium. It's actually a thin layer of connective tissue that lines the heart chambers and is the main constituent of the heart valves. The heart has four chambers, two atria, which are the superior chambers that receive the blood, and two ventricles, which are the inferior chambers that pump blood. The chambers are separated longitudinally by a massive tissue called the cardiac septum. Between the atria, which you can't see here because it's blocked by the aorta and pulmonary trunk, but under those, between the atria, this septum is referred to as the interatrial septum. Between the ventricles, down in this area, it is called the interventricular septum. There are four valves in the heart that make sure blood flows through the heart in the correct way. Two atrioventricular valves and two semilunar valves. They are the tricuspid valve, the pulmonary semilunar valve, the bicuspid or mitral valve, and the aortic semilunar valve. These valves are anchored to the papillary muscles of the ventricular wall by cords of tissue called Chordae Tendineae. The picture in front of you shows an excellent representation of how the valves are held down and are able to work. The Chordae Tendineae that are right here are basically the heartstrings of the heart and attach those valves to the papillary muscles seen down below. The heart, made of cardiac muscle, is a pump that pumps blood all over the body. The right side of the heart pumps deoxygenated blood from the body to the lungs to get oxygenated. This is referred to as pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary meaning lungs. The left side of the heart pumps oxygenated blood from the lungs all over the body. This is referred to as systemic circulation. Again, I go into more detail on the flow of blood through the heart in my other video, and will put that link in the description box below. The left side of the heart has a harder job as it has to overcome the pressure of the aorta, the body, in order to be able to pump blood through the aorta to the rest of the body. Can you guess which ventricle this is based on what I just said? Can you? If you guessed left ventricle, you are right. This is the chamber that has to do the most work pumping the blood throughout the whole body. As you can see here, the muscle on the left side is much thicker than the muscle on the right side. This would be the right ventricle, and this would be the left ventricle. And yes, I did say that this was the left side of the heart. A little fun fact, whenever you're looking at the heart like this, and you probably noticed it on the other diagrams I showed you previously, the left side of the heart is always shown on your right side, and the right side of the heart is always shown on your left side. That's because when you're looking at the heart like this, you're looking at the heart as if you're looking at it in the person in front of you, or the person would be on a table. So it's always going to be the opposite of your hand. So on my right hand side would be the left side of the heart, and on my left hand side would be the right side of the heart. Now going back to that left side of the heart having to work harder because it has to pump blood all over the body, if your blood pressure is higher than normal, then that means that the pressure in the aorta will also be higher, and then your left ventricle has to work even that much harder. Something to think about. Though the heart is pumping all this blood through it, did you know that it is not directly using it? That's right, it is just working as a pump. However, the heart is composed of living cells and therefore must be kept alive. This is where the coronary circulation comes into play. The coronary circulation supplies blood to the heart itself so that it can get the oxygen and nutrients it needs and waste and deoxygenated blood taken away. This is composed of both coronary arteries and coronary veins. The arteries are going to supply the oxygen nutrient-rich blood to the heart itself, and then the veins are going to take that away along with waste to be delivered into what's called the coronary sinus. The coronary sinus then delivers blood back to the heart through the right atrium, where it's going to enter into the heart to be pumped to the lungs, and then back to the left side of the heart, and then to the rest of the body. There are 3 types of muscle tissue that are found in the body: skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, and cardiac muscle. The majority of the heart is made up of cardiac muscle, and it is the only place where cardiac muscle is found. Cardiac muscle is actually similar to skeletal muscle, though there are some noticeable differences. Cardiac muscle has branching. It also has what are called intercalated discs. Intercalated discs are junctions between cardiac muscle cells, and in this area there are many gap junctions. These gap junctions allow the ions to pass so that signals for contraction can reach multiple cardiac cells at the same time. These structural differences are going to allow the cardiac muscle to work in syncytium. Let's see where we can find some intercalated discs in this picture in front of you. They stain a little bit darker, so there's actually one right here. There's another one right here, and they differentiate one cardiac muscle cell from another. There's another one right in this area right here. The contractions of the heart are not initiated by the nervous system. Rather, the heart initiates its own impulses using specialized autorhythmic fibers. These autorhythmic fibers are specialized cardiac muscle cells that function as what is called the conduction system of the heart. They are able to repeatedly generate action potentials that trigger heart contractions even after the heart is removed from the body. The first part of this system is called the sinoatrial node, or SA node. The SA node is located in the right atrial wall. It can actually spontaneously depolarize to threshold. This is called a pacemaker potential. The SA node is also known as the pacemaker of the heart. When threshold is reached, then an action potential can occur. As a side note, I will be making a separate video on action potentials because this is a complicated topic and I don't want it to get embedded in this video. So I will be making a separate video on action potentials and go through those in its entirety. But so that you know for now, once an action potential happens, it will trigger a contraction. So the SA node will spontaneously depolarize to threshold. This will allow for an action potential to occur, and then an action potential will lead to a contraction. In this case, once that SA node depolarizes, it's going to send this through both atria. It's going to send this signal through both atria. You cannot see the atria on the other side, but it actually sends it through the right and left atria. And then what's going to happen is that signal gets sent through both those sides at the same time. And then the result is that the right and left atria would then contract at the same time. The SA node can actually, like I said before, it is actually considered the pacemaker of the heart, and it is the fastest of all the autorhythmic fibers. It can initiate 100 times per minute. So this signal is going to travel then from the SA node to the atrioventricular node. So the SA node spontaneously depolarizes, sends that signal to both the right and left side as the signal also starts to travel down to the AV node. The right and left atrium would have contracted, and now the signal is going to travel to this area, which is called the AV bundle, or sometimes referred to just as the bundle of His. You'll notice that once it gets into this bundle of His, it separates into left and right sides, and these are referred to as the right and left bundle branches. It's going to then travel down towards the bottom of the ventricles and into this area where there are Purkinje fibers. Purkinje fibers are also specialized cardiac cells, and they're just bigger. These Purkinje fibers are then going to rapidly conduct that action potential up through the rest of the ventricle on both sides. And then, of course, if you can guess, that's going to allow both the left and right ventricles to contract at the same time. So the right and left atria contract at the same time, pushing blood into the ventricles. And then the ventricles are going to contract at the same time, pushing blood either into the pulmonary trunk for the right side or into the aorta for the left side. Because of this electrical conduction system in the heart rhythms can be measured and recorded. This is done using an electrocardiogram, probably better known to you as an ECG or an EKG. EKGs can be done if a doctor thinks there may be something wrong with the way the heart is beating, they listen to it and something doesn't sound right, they can order an electrocardiogram. When they're looking at the electrocardiogram, there are going to be 3 waves that are recorded for each heartbeat. The first recognizable wave is known as the P wave. And this is a small upward deflection, and it's going to represent atrial depolarization. The next wave that we come to is going to be the QRS complex. And this is going to start as a downward deflection, and then it goes into a large upright triangular wave ending in a downward wave. This QRS complex is going to represent rapid ventricular depolarization. And finally, we get to the last wave, which is a T wave. This is a domed upward deflection, and the T wave indicates ventricular repolarization. Between the waves are intervals or segments. The first interval is going to be the PQ interval, which would be from the beginning of the P wave to the beginning of the QRS complex. This is going to represent the conduction time from atrial excitement to ventricular excitement. The ST segment is the next segment, and that is going to begin at the end of the S wave, and then it ends at the beginning of the T wave. This represents the time when ventricular contractile fibers are depolarized during the plateau phase of an action potential. And then finally, the QT interval is going to be from the start of the QRS complex to the end of the T wave. And this is the time from the beginning of ventricular depolarization to the end of ventricular repolarization. If there is something off about any of the waves, if they're not correct, if they're too close together, too far apart, something's weird about them, some differences in those intervals, then doctors can pinpoint where the problems in the heart may lie. The cardiac cycle includes all the events associated with one heartbeat. This includes the systole and diastole of the atria, plus the systole and diastole of the ventricles. Systole refers to the contraction of the chambers, and diastole refers to the relaxing of the chambers. In one cardiac cycle, there will be one atrial systole, which lasts about 0.1 seconds. This is where the atria are contracted while the ventricles are relaxed. Second will be ventricular systole, which lasts about 0.3 seconds, where the ventricles are contracting while the atria are relaxed. Then there is a relaxation period where both atria and ventricles are relaxed. This lasts about 0.4 seconds. At this point, all the valves are closed. When heart rate is about 75 beats per minute, a cardiac cycle lasts 0.8 seconds. There is no point at which all four chambers are contracted at the same time. Let's talk about the sounds that can be heard in the heart. Auscultation is the term given to the listening of sounds within the body. A physician or nurse can do this by using a stethoscope placed on the chest. In each cardiac cycle, there should be 4 heart sounds. However, in a normal heart, only 2 of these can actually be heard. The 2 sounds that can be heard are referred to as S1 and S2. S1, or lub, is louder and longer, and it is associated with the closing of the AV valves. S2, or dub, is shorter and not as loud. It is associated with the closure of the SL, or semilunar valves. The 2 sounds that are not loud enough to be heard are referred to as S3 and S4. S3 is due to the blood turbulence during rapid ventricular filling, and S4 is due to the blood turbulence during atrial systole. If more than 2 sounds are heard, then it can indicate that there is something going on with the blood flow through the heart. A normal heartbeat would make the sound lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub. Even though the heart can beat on its own with signals from the conduction system, regulation of the heart can occur by other parts of the body. One of these is autonomic regulation of the heart. In the medulla oblongata, part of the brainstem, we can find the cardiovascular center. Impulses from this area can either increase or decrease the frequency of nerve impulses in both the sympathetic and parasympathetic branches of the autonomic nervous system. Remember, sympathetic system is your flight or fight system, while the parasympathetic is rest and digest. There are 3 receptors that can relay sensory information to this center in the medulla oblongata. They are proprioceptors, which are going to monitor the positions of the limbs and muscles. When increased movement is sensed, for example, you're exercising, running, etc., then your heart rate is increased. Chemoreceptors are capable of responding to chemicals in the blood. These receptors can sense things as low or high carbon dioxide and regulate heart rate accordingly. And finally, the third kind of receptor that we can find are baroreceptors. Baroreceptors monitor the stretch of arteries and veins due to pressure changes. The higher the pressure, the faster the heart will beat. There is also chemical regulation of the heart. Hormones such as epinephrine and norepinephrine can enhance the heart's pumping effectiveness and increase heart rate. These can be released by exercise, stress, and excitement, and are part of the flight or fight response. Cations, such as potassium, calcium, and sodium, can also affect heart rate. Elevated blood levels of potassium and sodium will decrease heart rate, while an increase of calcium will speed heart rate. Other factors in heart rate regulation include age. Babies have a higher heart rate than adults. Gender, where females have a slightly higher resting heart rate than males. Physical fitness can actually affect heart rate as well. Regular exercise brings down resting heart rate. Body temperature, if you have an increased body temperature like during exercise or a fever, it actually increases heart rate. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you have any questions about this video or even a suggestion for another topic, please make sure to comment below. Are these videos helping you learn more about how your body works? Are they helping you prepare for a class or test? Let me know. I love to hear from my viewers. Comment below. Make sure, if you haven't already, to subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell to never miss out on a new video. Thank you.